You are Locked On Jets POSTCAST, part of Locked On Sports New York on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
For the fourth straight game, the New York Jets took a lead into the fourth quarter. Despite the drama, despite some poor clock management, the New York Jets finally got a fourth quarter lead to hold, and they moved to 4-10 after defeating the Jacksonville Jaguars 32-25. And that 32 is very important. We'll get into that here in a little bit. Welcome in, everybody, to the Locked On Jets postcast. I am your host, Chris Schubert, longtime Jets fan, longtime Jets podcaster, radio host, here with you after every single Jets game to break it all down, as for the fourth time this season, we have a victory edition of the Locked On Jets postcast. A lot for us to unpack from this 32-25 win for the New York Jets. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. If you win your first $5 bet, just visit FanDuel.com to get started. We will get started with where this game was won for the New York Jets, the fourth quarter, because for the fourth consecutive game, the New York Jets started the fourth quarter with the lead. This one, the slimmest of the lead so far, a 17-16 lead going in to the fourth quarter, and the same script that we have seen from this team in recent weeks popped up once again. They held on to the lead. They allowed the Jags back into it. You had this question in your mind of, would it be the offense that came up short? Would it be the defense that came up short? And both groups had an opportunity to come up short in this game, but they did not, as Aaron Rodgers and company, after this game is tied up at 25 apiece, he takes the team right down the field, and they take a touchdown lead, 32-25, and then Sauce Gardner gets his first interception since 2022 as the New York Jets, for the first time this season. Think about this, and when we do these postcasts, a lot of the time there is one stat, there is one thing that we point to and we say, this is a big reason why the New York Jets have been unsuccessful this season. But for the first time this season, and I went back and looked, but for the first time this season, the New York Jets got to that magic 30 number. They scored 30 points in a football game. The closest that they got was the 27 points that they scored against the Colts a few weeks ago, but that was it. They have not gotten into the magical 30s yet this season. And they did that in today's game, winning 32-25. And they put together really their most complete effort of the season. They, for four quarters, despite the weirdness of the first half, and we'll get into that here in just a second, they were able to look like the team that they are supposed to be for four quarters. The defense, bend but don't break. They allowed some stuff early that made you think it was going to be a long day, but they buckled down, held Jacksonville to some field goals, and ultimately, when they needed to make a stop, they got the turnover after a really poor decision by Mac Jones. Completely overthrew Parker Washington right into the arms of Sauce Gardner, and that all but ended the game. But the Jets offense for four quarters, the only reason why they didn't do a whole lot in the first half was they didn't have the ball. The defense for the Jets only gave up, 13 points by the time we got to the first half, but it felt like the Jets were getting crushed because Aaron Rodgers only had 3 completions in the first half, and it was the fewest he had ever had in a game where he had played the entirety of the first half, not leaving because of an injury or something, and they just didn't have the ball. The time of possession in the first half very much skewed towards the Jacksonville Jaguars, and so it just forced the Jets to not be in rhythm, right? One of the things about offense and football is rhythm. You have to see what the defense is giving you. You have to adjust to what the Jets didn't have an opportunity to adjust. They didn't have an opportunity to get into any sort of flow, into any sort of rhythm, because they didn't have the ball. The Jags took the ball immediately as the game started, and it was slow, it was methodical, it was dink and dunk, and it was honestly frustrating because Mac Jones, who came into this game 5-0 with his career record against the New York Jets, it felt like it was going to be one of those games where Mac Jones, the former New England Patriot, was going to just crumble the New York Jets, and he was going to do so in the most boring way possible. Because on that first drive, I actually texted a buddy, and I was like, I don't think Mac Jones, I said, I know you're not watching the game, but I don't think Mac Jones has thrown a ball more than 4 yards down the field. It was screenplay, it was checkdowns, it was dump-offs, but it was working. They were moving the ball down the field early, and they were just being slow. It was methodical, and it was putting the Jets on their back foot to where they didn't have the ball a lot in the first half. That was the only thing that slowed the offense down, because when they did have the ball, they moved it down the field. They scored a touchdown. You felt like Rodgers has really looked good the last couple of weeks. I think that's one of the big takeaways here. If there is still a camp of people that want to potentially run it back with Rodgers for one more year, the last couple of games, results to the side would be the sample size that you would point to. That would be what you would present as your evidence to why Rodgers should be brought back. Looks like he's healthy for once. Looks like he's playing healthy football this season for the first time since probably week 1 or 2 of the season. And he looked good. Almost threw for 300 yards again today. Threw for the 3 touchdowns. Didn't turn the ball over. He was the Jets' leading rusher. That's a problem that we'll get to later on in the show. They just couldn't do anything running the football. But this offense looked good, and it looked good when it mattered most. Because how many times have we come on to this Locked On Jets postcast, and we've discussed the offense not getting it done in the fourth quarter, the offense getting the ball in those spots to take the lead, or to put the nail in the coffin, to really end the game on offense, what's supposed to be the strength of this team, and they didn't do it. They couldn't come through in those moments. And over and over and over again this year, they have done that. Today, not only did they do it once, but they did it twice, because they went on the drive that put them up 25-22, the 71-yard pass from Rodgers to Adams, but then they had to do it again after the Jags went down the field to tie the game at 25. So 2 times in the fourth quarter while they were trailing or tied, Aaron Rodgers and this offense were able to go on those game-winning drives, those go-ahead drives when the team needed it. So after not having it up until this point, you got it 2 drives in the fourth quarter that led to the Jets' 32-25 victory over the Jags. There are probably some of you out there that are a little frustrated that the Jets won this football game after being eliminated and these games not mattering and thinking about the bigger picture. I get it, but you know what? It's a lot more fun doing these postcasts when we get to talk about a Jets victory than when we have to talk about a Jets loss. On the other side, it was a bit of a throwback. It felt like we were back in the mid-2010s watching Aaron Rodgers throw to his favorite wide receiver. We will talk about that wide receiver's performance here next on the Locked On Jets postcast. This episode of the Locked On Jets postcast, sponsored by BetterHelp. How do you stay cozy during the winter months? For some, it's wrapping up in a blanket, that mug of hot chocolate, watching your favorite movie. Maybe you're spending time with family. That is the best way for you to spend December. Maybe therapy's a great way to bring yourself some comfort that never goes away, even when the season changes. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you got to do, just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Find comfort this December with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Oh, it's that time of year. I'm excited. I'm sure you're excited. The college football playoff is back, and with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT Sports' coverage of the college football playoff begins December 21st, starting with the college football playoff kickoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern, leading into the first matchup. The Southern Methodist University Mustangs battling the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon. Then the Clemson Tigers look to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the college football playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. Looking forward to the college football playoff. My alma mater, the Arizona State Sun Devils, earning one of those first-round buys, so I will be locked into that Clemson-Texas matchup to see who my Sun Devils take on. But welcome back into the Locked On Jets postcast. Please do us a favor here on the Locked On Sports New York YouTube channel. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you turn on that notification bell so that you are notified when we go live after each and every sport here in New York is done. I've got you covered on the Jets side of things, obviously. I've also got you covered on the Mets side of things. They're not going to be a big deal next season. No, Juan Soto being in town, those post-game shows aren't going to be fun and a lot of excitement. Yes, they are. Make sure you are subscribed to the Locked On Sports New York YouTube channel. Maybe you are a Yankee fan. That's okay. We still love you here. You can check out Jay Berman. He's got you covered on the Yankee side of things. He also covers you with the Knicks and the New York Giants, that other football team in town. So please do us a favor. Subscribe to the Locked On Sports New York YouTube channel. Turn on that notification bell so that you are notified when we go live. Back recapping the New York Jets' 32-25 victory over the Jacksonville Jaguars, despite there being drama in the fourth quarter, despite the clock management for the second straight week. What is that about? What's going on there? I mean, they gave the Dolphins the opportunity last week to come down the field and tie the game with the way that they handled the clock and their play calling down the stretch. And you learn from those things and you instill those things in practice and you make sure that those things don't happen again. Here we were again after the Jets take the lead. The way they used their timeouts, the way they called plays, gave the Jags all of their timeouts, or at least 2 of their timeouts, and over a minute to work the field. Basically, their entire playbook is available to them with that much time and those timeouts. So that type of stuff, you think big picture when you are thinking about the next coach of this team and where this team's going to go from here, they got to clean that stuff up because for the second straight week, it almost bit them in the rear end. It didn't, unlike it did last week. Last week, it was crucial. I mean, it was the thing that allowed the Dolphins to tie the game, force it into overtime, and then win the game. This week, it did not come back to haunt the New York Jets. A reason why? Because Davante Adams had a career day. Didn't have anything in the first half. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers only had 3 completions. We mentioned that a little bit earlier in the program. But Davante Adams in this second half was old school Davante Adams. And I don't know if you felt it, but I felt for the first time since Davante Adams came here to the New York Jets, it felt like I was watching Green Bay Aaron and Green Bay Davante. It felt like they were on the same page. It felt like they knew exactly what they wanted to do. It felt like they knew exactly what the defense was going to do, and they were able to kind of smirk and go, okay, watch this. Davante Adams opened a bunch. He made some tough plays. The catch that he made to set up the Breece Hall touchdown, the game-winning touchdown, wide open. I don't know how you leave Davante Adams wide open because up until that point, he had 8 catches, over 100 yards. He was torching this defense in the second half. I don't know how you leave that guy wide open near the line of scrimmage. They did, and Davante Adams had a career day. 9 catches, 198 yards, and 2 touchdowns, including the longest of his career, the 71-yard touchdown pass from Aaron Rodgers. I mean, this was a throwback. It felt like I was watching old school Aaron Rodgers and old school Davante Adams. I'm hopeful that you felt the same because this is what we signed up for, right? When they made this trade to try to salvage the season, to try to keep things alive in the AFC playoff race, that was what they were trying to replicate. That was what we were supposed to see on a week in, week out basis, and we just haven't. We saw it today, and it was a lot of fun. And I wasn't sure what Davante Adams' future plans were. When he was traded here, they structured that contract in a way that felt like he could be on this team next season. I don't know what the quarterback future is going to hold. I don't know what the coach, GM direction of this team is going to hold. But sitting here today, I'm supposed to give you my raw, natural reaction to the game. That's the beauty of these postcasts. Seeing Davante Adams today play that way, I don't care who the quarterback is next season. I want Davante Adams back on the New York Jets. I want Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson paroling the sidelines for the New York Jets as their wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 in whatever order you want to put them in. Because Davante Adams still, even though he's an older wide receiver, he still has it. He's still making plays out in space. He still has the speed to get vertical and get down the field and make those big plays. He still has some gas left in the tank. You saw it here today. Team's 3-10. This game's meaningless. And you still see the effort. You still see. That was my concern going into this game, especially after the first drive, was the effort going to be there? The defensive effort looked a little sluggish at first, felt like they were just back to their old ways, missing tackles, allowing big plays when you should stop them for short gains, and it just felt like we were repeating the same cycle. They locked down. They kind of got into a rhythm. The game kind of flowed to them, and on offense, it was the reverse. They kind of needed to gear it up as the game went on. And they did, and Davante Adams was a big reason why. Those 9 catches, 198 yards, and 2 touchdowns, including the 2 big touchdowns here in this game. And he made some silly plays. I mean, he made a catch on the drive that led to the Breece Hall touchdown that was simply sensational. I mean, I don't know how Aaron Rodgers fit the ball into that tight window along the sidelines, and I don't know how Davante Adams got 2 feet down. He did. I still don't know how he was able to get 2 feet down, but it felt like, and this was with Breece Hall not running the ball all that great. Isaiah Davis not running the ball all that great. Braylon Allen leaving this game with an injury. They didn't really have a running game. Aaron Rodgers was their leading rusher. 6 carries for 45 yards. They couldn't do anything running the football. Now look, Breece Hall was banged up coming into this game. I thought it was a questionable decision to even put him into this game with how limited he was all week. Just shut him down. There's no reason to risk a long-term injury. There's no reason to risk something that could impact the 2025 season when 2024 is over. It doesn't mean anything. They have that E next to their name, but he played. He did get the game-winning touchdown, but other than that, didn't really do a whole lot. Aaron Rodgers had to do a lot himself, extending plays, taking off, really just throwing it back old school. And for what feels like the 3rd or 4th straight game, probably since the Seattle game, Aaron Rodgers and this offense have looked like the group that they're supposed to be, and Aaron Rodgers has looked really, really healthy. And it helps when you have your best friend and one of the best wide receivers still in the game out there running routes for you in Davante Adams, who, again, almost had a 200-yard day today, and that was all in the second half. Rodgers had 3 completions in the first half. He ended the day with 289 yards, the 3 touchdowns. Davante Adams had 198 yards himself, all in the second half. Just incredible what this team was able to do in the second half, and that's normally where we see this team falter. That's normally where we see this offense run out of steam. They look good in the first half. They put it together. They put some touchdown drives on the board. They maybe have a small lead, or at least they're in the game, but over the course of the third and fourth quarters, they usually slow down. They usually hit that wall, and then we're into these situations where the fourth quarter, it's drama-filled. They need the drive to win the game, and they come up short. Today, not so much, and that's a good thing. Again, I know there are people out there that are not happy with the result. They are Team Tank. They want this team to have the highest draft pick possible in order to potentially draft a quarterback. I get that, and I don't maybe necessarily disagree with your approach, but like I said earlier, it's much more fun doing these shows, and I think it's much more fun as a fan when your team is winning and you're able to enjoy that victory, and you should enjoy it. You should not be upset or mad that your team won the football game. Their chances of drafting a quarterback at the top of the draft were pretty slim as it was. They finally got to 30 points in the game today for the first time all season. We will get to that and final thoughts here on the other side of the break. Get ready to tackle the rest of the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports book partner of the NFL. The Jets get their 4th win of the season. We welcome you back into the Locked On Jets postcast. If you want even more bigger picture thoughts, looking at this win from the 40,000-foot view of what it means for the Jets' offseason plans, what it means for their future at quarterback, because there are all of those strings to pull on from the Jets beating the Jacksonville Jaguars 32-25. You are going to want to listen to the Locked On Jets podcast. John B's got you covered with those big picture thoughts each and every day on the Locked On Jets postcast. So we appreciate you joining us here on the postcast, but you've also got the bigger picture. I'm just the hot take guy. I'm just the natural, raw reaction guy after these Jets games, bringing you immediate reaction to what we saw here today as the New York Jets defeat the Jacksonville Jaguars 32-25, and that 30, really important. We said it earlier, the New York Jets got to 30 points for the first time this season, and I was looking through the game logs to see the close encounters that they've had with 30 points, and 26 last week against the Dolphins, 21 against Seattle, 27 against the Colts. So a string of being in the 20s, but 6 against the Cardinals, 13 against the Texans, 15 against the Steelers. And you look, and early in the season, 19 against the 49ers, 24 in their win against the Titans, 24 against the Patriots, 9 against the Broncos. I mean, this team, it has been a grind. It has been a struggle to get to 30. Why? Because really, they haven't put together a complete offensive effort. Think to yourself here for a second. There are 2 games that come to mind to me that are complete offensive efforts, meaning they didn't turn it on late or they didn't have it early and then lose it late, where through all 4 quarters you felt like you were watching the best version of this team. There are 2. It's the 2 Thursday night games that they played. It's that week 3 contest against the Patriots where Rodgers was running around making plays, looked so much better than what we saw against San Francisco or Tennessee. And then the game against Houston, where after losing 5 in a row, short week at home against Houston, they were able to put up 21 points. That's it. I don't even think the 27 they put up against Indy felt like the way we felt today or the way I felt in those other 2 games. So it was really important to see because, again, the team, whatever you think of them, are going to have a decision to make at the end of the season about bringing back Aaron Rodgers. And the tape the rest of the way is going to give them the complete picture. They're going to have the sample size that saw them dig themselves into this hole, and the way he's played as of late against Seattle, against Miami, against Jacksonville, and then the way they're going to play the final 3 games of the season, Rams, Bills, Dolphins, that's going to be another picture. And having that complete picture all put together and having a game like today where despite it not meaning anything, they're able to twice in the fourth quarter go on those drives that we haven't seen them do, where they're able to connect with Davante Adams, who's under contract on this team for next season, where he's able to make those plays to take the team down the field. He's able to extend plays out of the pocket, despite being a now 41-year-old quarterback. That's stuff that they're going to be able to decide on this offseason. And so you want to see the good, the bad, the ugly, the indifferent. You want it all together because you don't want to be left in this offseason having the what-if game, right? You want to have a complete picture so that you can make this determination. So again, I know the result might not be ideal for some, and there are some out there that are probably listening to this either live with us on Locked On Sports New York, or you're listening to it back in the podcast feed, that are a little frustrated by this loss or by this win because you would rather it have been a loss to help them in playoff picture. But you got a lot of players on this team. You have a lot of talent that's going to be here next year. And they need to go through the bumps, the highs, the lows, and they need to rally. And if they do go on a run here down the stretch, even though it won't matter, that could be some momentum, because I think Garrett Wilson's still going to be here next year. Breece Hall, Davante Adams might still be here. There are a lot of Sauce Gardner, a lot of players on that defense that are still going to be here next year. And you want them to remember everything about this season, the expectations, the good, the bad, the ugly. You want them to have that in their memory bank when they go into the next era of Jets football with whoever the coach and GM is. Looking at some of the bigger picture numbers from this game, I will say the two concerns that I had from this game, if we wanted to just, I don't want to say be negative, but just think about this for the future games this season and beyond, because we've got 3 more postcasts for us to do here on the Locked On Sports New York YouTube channel. The running game being non-existent is a big problem because your offensive line, healthy. Moses in there, Tippmann in there, AVT in there, Olufashano's looking good. I mean, the offensive line is the way it's supposed to be, and Breece Hall only had 3.3 yards per carry. Isaiah Davis was better at 4.8 yards per carry, but only got 5 touches for 24 yards. You got to see more there because Aaron Rodgers is 41 years old. You can't put everything on him. I mean, he was only 16 of 30 here today. So despite the near 300 yards, despite the 3 touchdowns, despite almost carrying the team on his back in the second half as a 41-year-old, I get it, but you need to have complementary football. And so they need more out of Breece Hall, Isaiah Davis, Braylon Allen, whoever is going to be in the backfield down the stretch here for these final 3 games, because you need a running game. And so that is a big picture thing. The other big picture thing is I would maybe cover Brian Thomas Jr. That would have been a suggestion of mine. 10 catches, 105 yards, and 2 touchdowns. The Jets struggled with him all day long. And so with matchups coming up against the Rams, if Brian Thomas was a problem, Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua going to be a problem. You're going to face the Bills again. They don't really have a true number 1. Maybe Amari Cooper is a problem. But you're going to play the Dolphins. Jalen Waddle, I know he was hurt in today's game, but Tyreek Hill, like number 1 wide receivers. Brenton Strange caught 11 passes for 73 yards as the backup tight end for this team after Everett Ingram, was ruled out earlier in the week. That has to be better. So if there were 2 things to take away from this game, even though it was a win, you got to find your running game, and you need to buckle down against big-time targets, because that's a rookie who went for over 102 touchdowns against you, and you didn't have an answer for him. Whether it was screen passes out wide, if it was stuff over the middle, you didn't have an answer for what Mac Jones and Brian Thomas were up to. And in the first half, Mac Jones was picking you apart. And so that stuff's on tape now, and it was a lot of dink and dunk. And guess what? The next 3 weeks of the season, you're not going to face a lot of dink and dunk. You're going to face a lot of, we're going to be able to take the ball deep on you. We're going to be able to take the top off the defense. We've got talent. We've got playmakers when you play the Rams, the Bills, and the Dolphins. So big picture, it's a win. They get to 4-10. They get to 30 points for the first time this season. All of that is really good. But if there are some things that they put on tape this week that are concerning, it was their lack of a running game, which has kind of been a theme the last couple of weeks, and the number 1 wide receiver for the Jags just torching the New York Jets defensively, and they really didn't have an answer. And I'm sure you were worried late that when the Jags had the ball, when down 7, that it was going to be a lot of Brenton Strange. It was going to be a lot of Brian Thomas Jr., and they were just going to march down the field. Mac Jones provided some entertainment with that big-time overthrow of Parker Washington that led to Sauce Gardner getting his first interception since 2022. So there was some disgruntledness on the sidelines with Garrett Wilson. I think we're just going to chalk that up to heat of the moment of being in the game and wanting the ball. I'm not going to read too much into that, but I did want to at least note it here as we closed up shop here on the Locked On Jets postcast. We appreciate you joining us here each and every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, whenever the Jets play. We've got you covered here, Locked On Jets POSTCAST, and we recap everything that happened, and I give you my thoughts on what we saw here today. It was the most complete effort we've seen from this team. They got to 30 points. They held on in the fourth quarter. They did what they needed to do in the fourth quarter. Again, the reason for the struggles in the first half was they just didn't have the ball. It wasn't like the Jets defense was giving up touchdown upon touchdown upon touchdown. The Jags were just slow, methodical, moving the ball up and down the field. I mean, the first couple of drives for the Jags, a 13-play drive for 70 yards, and then their field goal drive was an 18-play, 77-yard drive, and then their field goal drive to end the half, 11-play, 73 yards. So they just got torched. I mean, that 18-play drive took 11 minutes off the clock. The first drive of the game was 6 minutes. 17 minutes of the first half were just in those two drives by the Jags. It's hard to get into rhythm. It's hard to get into a flow. And by the way, if you were concerned about the flow, after that 13-play drive to start the game, the Jets went right down the field, 7 plays, 70 yards, and they did it in about half as much time, 3 minutes and 30 seconds. So they were able to hit the ground running even after sitting on the sidelines for a lengthy amount of time. So they were able to put together a complete effort. Davante Adams with a huge second half, and they finished the job. Like the professional wrestler Cody Rhodes, they finished the story. They finished the job in the fourth quarter for the first time this season in a big way. But that is going to do it for us here on the Locked On Jets postcast. We've got you covered the next time the Jets are in action when they take on Los Angeles Rams, I believe, are up next Sunday. They will take on the Rams. We will be here when that game is over on the Locked On Jets postcast. Make sure you stay tuned to the Locked On Jets podcast feed for more big picture thoughts after this game and the rest of the week in the lead up to the Jets taking on the Rams. But that is going to do it for us here. I have been your host, Chris Schubert. We appreciate you joining us here on the Locked On Jets postcast, a Jets victory postcast for us to do. It's been a lot of fun. Hopefully we make it 2 in a row next Sunday. See you, everybody.